Hello, trail finders. Welcome back to today's video. Today, we are going to talk about trigger and trigger.operation type. So basically, in the previous video, we understood how to run a trigger and how do we put the logic inside our trigger. Today, we are going to talk about how do we handle all of that logic based on what operation is happening. So basically, as you can see, your trigger is running on all of these operations, but there is certain logic which you just want to run on before insert. There is some logic which you run only on before update, and then there's some logic which you need to run on after insert and after update. How do you do that? So in order to do that, we use trigger.operation type. This is a method available within the trigger class. If you go to Salesforce developer help, so you would find on the trigger class here, there is this particular operation type is available. And what it returns is these values: before insert, before update, before delete, after insert, after update, after delete, and after undelete. So these are the seven values it will return. And you can use a switch statement like this, like I have written. And you can use this switch statement and run your logic on your switch statement. So whatever your logic is should go inside within this block of statement. You use the switch statement. What it does it makes your trigger method way more cleaner. This is one of the best practices to write any trigger. I would always recommend you to use this in your triggers. And what we also do is while writing triggers is, so when whatever is your logic, we write that logic in a separate class and we call the method of that particular class from here. That's all that we do. We don't write anything else inside the trigger. So actual logic always stays outside from your trigger, and these classes are called trigger handler classes. Stepping back again to trigger.operation type. So what it does is it gives you, so basically, whatever operation that happens on your account object, be it insert, update, delete, after insert, after update, or after delete, this particular trigger will run. And there should always be just one trigger on each object, which should basically adhere to all of these operations which are available, which can happen on the database. And then using your switch on trigger.operation type, you identify what particular action you need to do or what particular logic you need to run now. Now that we have one trigger on the account object, it is addressing to all the actions that can happen on the database. Now we are using the switch statement. So how do you write it? You write switch on trigger.operation type. What it will return is your values like before insert, before update, and then you write when before insert, when before update, and you always need to have a when else. What I will do here is I will just say system dot debug, and I will say before insert here. I'll just do a couple here and I'll show you how it works. So, and then I'll say before update. And then what I can also do is I can say after insert, and then this is after update. Yeah. Let's run these four and see what basically happens. So we'll go back to our account object. We'll go and create a new account record. Let's call it test account 1. Let me save it. Now our account is created. So what should have happened in our developer console is there should be a log which should have come through. So there's a log which has come through. Let's see what has happened on that log. So see, it says I'm running from a trigger before insert. I'm running from a trigger after insert. So where this is coming from, I'm running from a trigger. So this is outside the switch operation. So what basically happens is, if you look at this log correctly, what basically has happened is, so on the operation of before insert, this particular trigger ran. And what happened? It went inside this, it ran this command, this particular line, then it went inside switch, it identified its before insert, it went there and did this debug. Again to the trigger operation, found out that after insert, I need to run this trigger. Then it ran this particular line that I'm running from a trigger. It identified what is the operation type and it went inside after insert and did this debug statement. So basically, if you kind of understand it, that each particular transaction has a before and an after. So what basically happens is when you do any DML, so like we did save while creating this particular record, what basically happened was it in the system, this is called order of execution. So in the system, what it did was it ran the validation rules, it ran the workflows, process builders flows, and then it ran the trigger. Everything before was complete. Then it did a commit in the database. That's when you get the ID of your particular record. But this transaction is still not complete. And then it starts the moment you get the ID, when does the first commit in the database. That's when your after transaction starts to run. So that's when this particular statement came through. And that's when your after trigger runs and all the operations, your after flow and everything after gets completed. That's when the transaction gets complete and your database commit gets finished. So that's when your record gets saved. The first commit does not save your record itself. So if anything fails in the after transaction, the whole transaction gets rolled back and your record does not save in the database. It is always recommended that any time you're using before, same as flows. So anytime you are using before, it should only update the values on the record itself. And if you're using after, you should update the related records like updating a child record, updating a parent record, or sending out an email. So anything apart from that particular record, if you want to do, then you do that in your after triggers. Before triggers is just for updating that particular record. Now we are going to talk about the handler classes. So the handler classes are very important as well. So what you do is you write your Apex class in the same way as you would have been writing. Same way, you create an Apex class, you create a method, public static void, and call it trigger handler method one. I'm just giving it a name. And then what you can do is you can say system dot debug. I am running from handler. And I'll show you how this will run now. So I'll add this to before update like this. And because it's a static method, so I'll have to give the class name, and then I would put this to say that this is a method. And now if I go and update this particular record, we would have got another debug log. So now if I show you this, so it says I'm running from a handler, and then it says I'm running from a trigger, and then it says after update. So what basically happened is, if we see the flow of the transaction is, so I'm running from a trigger, it went inside this trigger before insert, I'm running from a trigger. And what happened? It says before update. It went inside the before operation. It went here. And then it also run this particular method. Then it goes into this class, runs this method. I'm running from a handler. So it says I'm running from a handler. Then your before transaction gets complete. And then it again runs the trigger for the after operation. And then it goes into after update. You can use trigger handler classes and put all the logic inside this method, and then just call this particular method from before or after or wherever logic operation type you want to run there. You can run it from there. Using handler classes help optimizing your code, making your code scalable and maintainable, and also easier to read for somebody as to what particular operation is happening on this particular trigger type. I think that's all for this video. I wish you all the very best. In the next video, we are going to write an actual logic on the account trigger and make some changes on the account record. See you in the next video. Wishing you all the best in your Salesforce journey. Have a good day.